Do you believe in ghosts? I know some of you don't. In this video, we're going to continue with the stories of life-changing experience of the people who used to not believe in ghosts but now do. See how these people went from being skeptics to believers and what they saw that changed their minds. I was 8 when my grandma died. I was so sad. Around 2 months after she passed and I was going to grandma's house where my grandpa lived. I wake up at 3 a.m. and hear footsteps from bedroom door. I froze and saw my grandma walking up to me and she said, "Hello, little sweetie," and walked away. It was not sleep paralysis because I could move my hands and feet. In the morning I told to my grandpa about it and he said, "I've seen grandma almost every night, she likes to visit, so don't be scared next time when you visit." I slept over at my buddy's house and woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of a woman crying coming from right outside his bedroom. I figured it was his mom arguing with another family member, so at first I felt very awkward rather than scared. Then things began getting more intense. She started screaming, $7. You did this for $7. And as she began getting louder and louder, I thought I might need to intervene before someone got hurt. I stood up, walked the door, grabbed the handle, opened the door, and suddenly instant dead silence. Every sound I heard died in a heartbeat. It went from a World War II war zone to being able to hear a mouse fart. Outside his room, every light in his house was off. There was no one else awake, nothing. I still can't explain what happened. I woke my friend up and he told me he once saw a lady in a white gown walking up his steps and thought it was his mom, but when she didn't respond to him calling out to her, he followed her up the stairs and when she turned a corner, she disappeared. Then one day, when they are moving out of this house, his cousin and sister arrived to the new house after grabbing some things from the old one and tell everyone that they swore they saw a girl in a white gown standing at the upstairs window as they pulled out of the driveway. Me and my friend never told anyone about our stories, so his cousin and sister said they saw what they saw without any prior knowledge of the situation. When I was in university, I went to go see my therapist whom I had been seeing twice a week for about 5 months. On this day, he was uncharacteristically quiet and I asked him if he was alright. He said he was fine, and we continued through what would be one of our most breakthrough sessions. A lot of repressed memories came up through it that have helped me to heal. At the end of the session, I asked him why he was acting differently today than other days. He said when I walked in I was accompanied by a warrior-like person. He said he had the overwhelming feeling to perform as best he professionally could that day, and that he got the sense this warrior had fought a lot of battles to protect me. This would seem coincidental, except for 10 years later I was living on the other side of the world. I had a Puerto Rican neighbor I would see occasionally and eventually got pretty close with him and his family. One day as I was walking by, he kind of gets quiet and weird and then says in broken English, "Do you know there is a soldier who follows you around?" I knew instantly who he was talking about. In both instances, the warrior/soldier was described the same, just over 6 feet, blonde curly hair, wearing primitive warrior clothing, and strangely a white guy. Neither of these people could have known that my closest brother who passed away at 14 was over 6 feet tall with blonde curly hair, and always was my protector. I'm still not sure if I believe in supernatural stuff, but there have been some weird things in my life that I can't explain. When I was 5 years old, I woke up in the night and my grandma was standing at the end of my bed wearing a teal blue skirt and a matching blouse. I remember that it was summer and the sky was still bright but not bright enough for me to read, so I guess it was about 9 p.m. I sat up, and she put her finger to her lips and I rubbed my eyes a couple of times because I was sleepy and when I looked back, she had gone. I just snuggled back under my covers thinking how nice it was to see her because I hadn't seen her for ages and I hoped she would still be there when I woke up. Next morning, my house was eerily quiet. My mom was in a worse mood than normal, but she had been crying so I asked her what was wrong. My grandma died the night before. She had been crossing a road after her bingo at 8:30 p.m. about 60 miles away from where we lived. She had a massive brain hemorrhage in the middle of the road and didn't even make it to the other side, let alone to my house 60 miles away. She was wearing a teal blue skirt and matching blouse. When I was around 8 years old and my brother was 6, we had been playing video games in my room while my dad and mom watched football downstairs. For a while we had lots of fun. That was until I had a really bad chill down my spine. I shrugged it off before I noticed my brother get a chill as well. He continued playing the game so I just thought if he wasn't worried then neither should I be. Everything went smoothly well, but not for long. My brother paused the game. "Do you hear that?" he asked. I then heard a humming sound of what seemed to be a little girl. I nodded. "The humming, right?" I asked him. He nodded as well. The humming was coming from the hallway right outside our room. We began to be very nervous because me and my brother were the only children in the house. The door was shut thankfully, so we did not see anything. After a few seconds of the humming, it stopped and we heard footsteps from the attic. The thing about the attic is that nobody ever really goes up there. At the time, neither me nor my brother had been ever up there, and my parents only went up there once each. Once the footsteps stopped and nothing else happened, we opened the door to see only the hallway. The next day we told our parents in great detail what had happened, and they did the whole parent thing saying, "Oh, you probably just heard us, it was your imagination." Needless to say, if I didn't believe in ghosts before that incident, now I did. I still don't believe in ghosts, but I did have a strange experience. I had a cat who I found in a ditch many years ago. She was cute and I pet her, so she followed me back down the train tracks about a mile to my home. I opened the door for her and she went in. She was offered the opportunity to go back out, and did for a moment, but then came back in. She was mine forever. I've had many pets over the years and loved them all. But this one was different. She wanted to be near me all the time. I'd often said I'd never had a cat who made me feel like my personal space was being violated before. She followed me up to bed every night and purred me to sleep. She died fairly quickly. I barely even had a chance to say goodbye. I knew she was ill, having been diagnosed with hyperthyroidism, which cat owners will know is not a good thing to hear. They vomit their food up and waste away slowly, eventually succumbing to either congestive heart failure or kidney damage. She had taken a turn for the worse and I thought her treatment wasn't working. On examination, they found tumors in her stomach and liver. She had been dealt a mortal blow and was only going to suffer harder and harder. In the most painful one I've ever had to deal with, I put her down and she even meowed one last time before the end. I buried her in the yard to keep her close and tried to go to sleep, completely beside myself with grief. As I lay down, I heard something familiar. I live in an old house and my bedroom doesn't have a door, so I installed one of those plastic sliding doors. The slats made of make a telltale clacking sound when they're disturbed, like they did when a cat pushes in between them and the doorframe. I heard this, and a moment later, I felt the foot of my bed compress, and could feel the mattress deform around my feet, up beside my legs and roughly to my hips. I looked, no cat. I don't know how to explain this. I don't believe in ghosts and I'm sure grief can cause some pretty significant psychological disturbances. I am anything but cuddly, but I was absolutely in the kind of deep grief where one would expect it, as I love that cat more than basically anything else. Even typing this now, years later, is making my eyes well up with sadness for my lost friend. I could write off the sound of the plastic slats as a breeze or hallucination. Older members of my family said they saw my father after he died, and I've read about grief-induced hallucinations before. But to feel my mattress deform like that in exactly the way she used to circle my feet and come up beside me, I don't know what to think. So, you know how kids see stuff when they're little? This is one of those stories. When I was younger, I was petrified of the man. I don't remember any of this, because I was too young, but apparently on multiple occasions I would stand completely still and verbally whisper, "Who is that man?" and when questioned what he wants I would say, "I don't know, it's the man." Anyway, most people would blow that off, but I happen to have 3 younger sisters, 2 of which had similar experiences. Petrified of the man, or for my other sister, the guy. My mom was super creeped out and started seeking religious guidance. So, growing up I was always told about this, and when I questioned it as a teenager my mom brought me a photo. A photo of me as a baby. I'm in a rocker, the TV is off behind me, and there is a perfect glare of a close-up man. Distinctively looks like a 60-year-old man. Oddly enough, my parents took picture from multiple angles that night. It's right when they remodeled the living room. There is nothing in the room to cast a shadow or make it appear like a man's face. Well, I'm suspicious but never really believe. But then one day, I'm at my parents' house at 24 and my 2-year-old is staring up my parents' steps and whispers, "Daddy, there's a man." I nearly shit my pants. Most of my family is extremely religious and believe in ghosts wholeheartedly. Most of them claim to have seen something paranormal at some point in their lives. I wasn't very religious, and I always thought to myself, if I haven't seen it, then it's not real. That changed during my senior year in HS. I was dog-sitting at my great-aunt's house while she was out of town for a few days. A little after midnight, I'm watching a movie and my aunt's dog starts barking like crazy and runs up the stairs at full speed. The dog was small, but fierce. Suddenly, I heard a gravelly voice at the top of the stairs say, "Bad doggy." The voice was deep and masculine. I went upstairs because I was certain nobody else was supposed to be there. I looked around and there was nobody in sight. The dog was still barking at something that I couldn't see. She was just barking at an empty hallway. That's when I heard footsteps walking away from us down the hall and into my aunt's bedroom. I could hear the footsteps, but I couldn't see anybody making them. I get the fuck out of that house with the dog and went outside in my car. The dog and I slept there for the night. I'm not entirely sure what I experienced that night, but I definitely believe in the paranormal now. I never told my aunt about what happened, but apparently my great-uncle, her husband, had died in that house a few months after I was born. I never knew him, but I'm willing to bet that it was him who I heard that night. Not about me, but this one about my 3 brothers. We used to live in the Philippines where everyone believes in ghosts, duwende, dwarves, diwatas, fairies, etc. Our old home was the second house built in our subdivision, so it was very old, with huge mango and other fruit trees growing all over. As my mom had told me, my 3 brothers were playing around shooting these bamboo bow and arrows made for them by one of our helpers. It was all fun and games, until my 3rd brother shot his arrow and according to him and my brothers, it stopped mid-air, and dropped. Needless to say, they found this weird and stopped playing. The next day, my brother is suddenly hit with a high fever out of nowhere. They were going to take my brother to my aunt who was a doctor, but my older brothers told my mom about the arrow stopping mid-air. My mom decided to take him to an albulario, which is a practitioner of folk medicine. So my mom took my brother to this guy so they could find out what had happened, and what they could do. Once they met up, the albulario decided to do a ritual that involved dripping candle wax in water to see what caused the sickness. Once they did this, a small humanoid figure formed in the water, but it was missing a hand. The albulario told my mom that my brother probably shot an arrow and hit a duende's hand, which is why he got hit with a fever as punishment. I don't know exactly what they did to ask for forgiveness, but apparently my brother got better the next day after. One morning at a friend's sleepover, it was one of those dazed moments where I wasn't sure if I was asleep or awake. I looked up and saw my grandmother above me. She told me she loved me very much and was so glad she had so many years to love me. She also told me that my boyfriend was wonderful and we'd have a happy life together. A few minutes later I got the call that she had passed away. I genuinely believe that on her way out of this plane she took the time to say goodbye. The last time I had seen her I made her my priority at the family dinner because I loved her so much and hadn't seen her recently. I pulled up pictures of the guy I was dating because I wanted to catch her up. We'd only been together a few weeks at this point. But that didn't matter. She asked if we were serious and I said, "Yeah, I think we are. He's amazing and I really don't want to spend my life away from him." So her last words being that he and I would be happy together was beautiful. I sent her a Facebook message on our wedding day to tell her how much she meant to me and how glad I have her blessing. It's silly, but I didn't know how else to get the message down for her. If you like that stories, don't forget to click like and subscribe for more stories.